I'm Tracy, an adult program specialist with the Arlington Heights Memorial Library. Veserin is my colleague and also an adult program specialist. We are here tonight with Mr. Robb Zbierski, an author, an Arlington Heights resident, a best-selling author no less, a speaker, a life coach, and an all-around swell guy. Tonight he's gonna teach us to discover our memory power. We are lucky he's with us, and I think you guys, I mean, like I've mentioned before, I know Robb personally, he's always entertaining. So we are lucky to have him again. He's been with us with the library a few times before, and this is hands down the most highly registered program that I have yet to host. The library actually had to increase their Zoom capacity tonight in order to accommodate the tremendous number of people who registered for this program. So please use the chat feature to communicate. Otherwise, Veserin and I are gonna go dim so your attention can fully focus on Mr. Zbierski, and I will make sure your questions get asked. So enjoy your program.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Tracy and Veserin. I appreciate that. I love that you guys like, I'm an adult learning specialist. I'm like, I'm an adult. Can leave it at that. So happy, what is it, Wednesday? Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm fired up to be here. Yes, my name, it's Robb Zbierski. And yeah, as Tracy, that's like, Tracy, honestly, that is the best intro I have had in at least 2 months. Probably because I haven't traveled to do my job in 2 months. But are we still on? Somebody give me a notice in the chat that we're still on. I saw some people freeze up, and there we go. Perfect. So yeah, I actually one of my last trips was to Canada, so I can now officially claim to be an internationally recognized. You're allowed to laugh at that. That's okay. Yeah, speaker, instructor, personal coach, and yes, best-selling author with a company called Freedom Personal Development. We are an international training organization. We specialize in personal and professional development training programs. So Thor, you got a great question. It just popped up in the chat. We're gonna talk about that in a second. My company specializes in helping teach skills-based training and mindset training. So we do programs like tonight. We do memory training. We do speed reading. We do time management skills. And then we also teach things in the mindset space, things like goal setting and how to train your brain for success, and the program called Master Your Mind, which comes from shameless self-promotion, my best-selling book that came out about 1.5 years ago. International treasure, thank you. I love the comments coming in already. So yeah, we are actually, my company, Freedom Personal Development, we are the largest and most successful memory training school in the world. And for the last 24 years now, we've been helping human beings. Like we've been helping professionals, parents, actually, and their kids develop a specific skill. It's called an instant recall memory. And I was brought in to talk about and show you and teach you about how your memory works, give you some understanding of different ways that you can leverage your memory in order to be more successful in every single thing that you do. Because if you think back on it, you're going to know that this mental skill, it's played an absolutely crucial role in all the success and then probably some of the failure that you've ever had. It's all come down to what you can recall and when you can recall it. And the good news is whatever it is you want to be better at remembering. I know for a lot of people, it's the names thing. For some people, it's procedures. For sales professionals, it's answers to objections or product details. For some husbands, it's what my wife just told me what to do. Like whatever it is you want to be better at remembering, you have the ability to train yourself to be able to recall that. And then the great news is when you make the decision and when you invest in learning how to train your memory, you're going to be more successful in every single thing that you do. So I do want to dive in because there's a question that came in right off the bat talking about memory and age and dementia. And the specific question is, do any drugs which postpone the onset of dementia? So my answer to this is, despite the number of letters in my last name, I am not a doctor, right? The only letters after my name are my last name. So I'm not a doctor. I cannot offer any medical professional advice. I can, however, share with you what I've read and what I've known. And I don't know of any drugs that help delay that. However, it has been proven that using your memory the way it's designed to be used, which is what I'm going to share with you tonight, has been proven to help offset early cognitive disintegration. I'm going to leave it at that. So again, I'm not a doctor, but I do know that using your memory the way it's designed to be used, it helps fight off early onset things. And what's fun about memory. I love this aspect. I love this program that we teach. I have the privilege of traveling literally all over the world, sharing this message and this lesson with people in just from all different industries and makeups. And it's a ton of fun. And it's funny because we've already seen some of the comments and questions and kind of jokes come up like, oh my gosh, I don't remember registering for the seminar. And, we joke about memory all the time, but the reality is this is a life-changing skill. I mean, the people that have learned how to implement the skills that we teach, they've had life-changing experiences. I can tell you one of my clients, she was asked to do an introduction at an association dinner, and she was asked to introduce the person who was receiving the award. Well, she was given some bullet points and they were kind of mishmashed and out of order. And she decided to use memory training to commit the items that she thought were really important to memory. And so she went up and delivered an introduction very eloquently at this association dinner. The part I missed was when she asked how many people were going to be there, they said, I don't know, it's like 50 or 60. Well, it turns out 300 people showed up for this association awards dinner. So put yourself in her shoes for a second. You've got an individual that you know a little bit, but not really well. You're asked to introduce them to a crowd of 300 people who are super engaged in every word that's going to come out of your mouth. And she admitted me, she goes, Rob, I was really nervous at first, but then I used the skills. And the bottom line is she was able to deliver the introduction so eloquently that someone in the crowd worked for an organization, a company that she personally kind of modeled her business after, came up to her afterwards and said, hey, you deliver that introduction so eloquently. You clearly are a woman who thinks differently at a higher level. I need somebody like you on my board of advisors. So, I mean, there's a perfect example of someone who implemented a very simple skill and it literally put her on the board of advisors for a company that she used to look up to. Now she's helping drive direction. Talk about people who, my wife is a perfect example. I taught her to use this skill to craft a sales presentation for, she was doing Norwex. For anybody on the line that's ever done the Norwex products, it's the direct sales. And she had never done sales. And in 30 minutes, we taught her the presentation where on her first meeting or product party, she shattered the rookie record for sales because she delivered the presentation so well. And 3 women came up to her and said, how long have you been doing this? You're so good. She said, this is my first time. And they're like, no way. We go to these all the time. We've never seen somebody deliver a presentation so well. And that's when she's wonderful. She's like, well, my husband taught me memory training. So I was like, that a girl. So anyway, I understand we're joking about it. It comes up all the time. I talk to people all the time who feel like they suffer from CRS, and I'm contractually obligated to not use any curse words, but I think we all can't remember something. All right, well, you know what I'm talking about. But I'd be curious, and I'd love to know, throw it in the chat. Open up, it's at the bottom of the screen. There's it looks like a text bubble, and underneath it says chat. Click on that. Just take a second, type in the chat, what would you love to be better at remembering? Like when you think about your day to day, think about the ins and outs, and I'm talking about today. Like, listen, in the current climate, it's a little crazy. But let's think back to like 2-3 months ago, or like think 2-3 months down the road. In your life, what's something that you would love to be better at remembering? And so I see, yeah, perfect. My to-do list, birthdays. I work at a school, parents' names, work stuff, names, stuff about my customers' accounts, a 5 to 7 minute speech build. That's a good one. Yeah, that's names. So I'm seeing a common thread here, and it seems to me that names is a big deal. And so names and faces. Oh, Marta, names and faces. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Talk about remembering names, remembering faces, remembering grocery lists. Left on the fly, grocery list. I love this. You guys are going to love this, what we teach. So names is the biggest thing that, oh my gosh, there's where I parked. You can put that in your phone now. Just your phone will keep track of that, where I parked. I had a guy once, he goes, man, I straight up forgot to pick up my kids from school the other day. Can you help me? I'm like, well, no, I'm not a taxi service, but how to remember that? Yes, I can totally help you with. So when it comes to remembering names, this is just a big one that comes up. So I'm going to dive in. This is the number one reason that organizations hire me to come out and train their people. This is the number one reason I'm totally self-edifying. This is the number one reason associations reach out to me and my company and hire us to speak at keynotes, is people want to be better at remembering names. And it's a little tougher because this is me talking to you instead of with you. But if you think about it, the reason you want to remember people's names is it's a sign of respect. It all comes back to what Dale Carnegie wrote in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which, ironically, it's a library program. Tracy, I'm imagining you guys have at least a dozen or so copies of How to Win Friends and Influence People at the library. But I mean, this book was written 80, 90 years ago. It's still got two key principles that when you incorporate these into your life, you're going to be more successful in every single thing that you do. The number one thing that Carnegie said is that people's favorite subject is themselves. And I'm sure there's people like on the keyboard ready to type that in. I don't think that's not a new concept to anyone on the call here. People's favorite subject is themselves. Now, what's interesting about this is, this doesn't come up in conversation, right? If you're having a conversation with somebody, nobody goes, well, Rob, it's Wednesday. Let's talk about me. But you pick up on it in conversations. They want to talk about their families. They want to talk about their work, their hobbies, their passions. If the conversation ever turns to vacations, clearly they would way rather talk about their vacation than your vacation. Carnegie went on to say that the more that information you can take and remember about someone, the higher the likelihood that they're going to like you, trust you, and want to do business with you, which I'm sure there's no shortage of people on the call that are just doing the bobblehead doll thing right now. The second thing that Carnegie said is that the most important thing people want you to remember, he called it the sweetest sound in the world, is he said that people want you to remember their name, right? It is the number one thing that people want you to remember about them. And I love doing this in a live session because I'll ask a question and I won't have you raise your hand, but I just want you to think and feel free to nod on your own if you're watching. But how many of you have done the thing where you're meeting someone for the very first time? Maybe it's a social setting, maybe it's a business setting, but you meet this person, you get their name, you shake their hand, and then as soon as the handshake breaks, the name's just gone. It's vanished, right? Oh my God, how does that happen? So one of the things we teach, there's actually 6 steps that we teach, 6-step process for remembering names. I'm going to share with you the first 2. These are memory amplifiers. These are things that if you just focus on doing these 2 things a little bit different or a little bit better, I can virtually guarantee you're going to clear up 80 to 85% of that situation from ever happening again. So if you're taking notes, grab your pen. Some people are probably white knuckling that thing. Give it to me. The number one thing that you need to do when you're meeting someone for the very first time, slow down and listen. I'm going to say that again for the people taking notes. Slow down and listen. Which I get it. Like, it sounds super simplistic, right? But the reality is, think about it. When you're meeting someone for the very first time, what's going on in your head? What are you thinking about? You're sizing them up. You're having a whole conversation. You're thinking about what you're going to talk about, what you're going to sell them. You're talking, if you're a dentist, you're going to looking at their teeth, right? And you're having like 6 or 7 conversations. So what happens is they open their mouth, they tell you their name. It goes in one ear and right out the other. Your brain, it's designed to multitask. But when you're multitasking, you're not forgetting that person's name 5 seconds after you met them. You never heard it to begin with. Right? They said, they opened their mouth, they said their name in one ear, right at the other. If you forget someone's name 5 seconds after you meet them, it doesn't mean you have a bad memory. It means you would benefit from improving your listening skills. So that's number one, is just slow down and listen. Because here's the deal. Like, case in point, you're all watching, you're on the call, you're on this meeting in this webinar, you're listening, you're paying attention, you're taking notes. I know for a fact that the majority of you right now are thinking about 4 or 5 other things. Right? They're like, this guy looks good and gray. Is this thing really going to go till 8 o'clock? What am I going to have for dinner? Is it rude to get up and get a cocktail? Like, it's happening right now, right? You can't be multitasking and try to remember someone's name at the same time. It just doesn't work. A tip I heard from someone is to internally ask yourself the question, what is this person's name? just asking yourself that question internally will often slow your mind down enough to make you available to listen for when they're sharing their name with you. So that's number one, slow down and listen. Second tip for remembering people's names. A lot of you have probably heard this one before. Hopefully you're doing this already, but it's repeat the person's name back to them. Let me say that again, repeat the person's name back to them. 2 to 3 times in the first 30 seconds has been proven to be most effective. That being said, I'm imagining everyone on the call here is a functional human being and understands that there's that fine line between effective and creepy. And if you know what I'm talking about, like, if you're meeting someone by the name of Bob, you're gonna go, "Hi, I'm Rob. What's your name?" Bob. Bob, 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 Bob. Right? No, it's creepy. You don't ever do it that way. It's funny, it's funny. The reason that's so creepy, there's a scientific explanation. The reason is your brain is this giant electrical system. And what happens is every time you hear your name or think you hear your name, 1 watt of electricity fires in your brain, which, okay, how many of you have been at a party or a social setting? Maybe not recently, but think back the last time you were at a party and you heard your name or thought you heard your name and you did one of those things. It's that 1 watt of electricity firing. So what happens, Bob, when I'm talking to you, Bob, about all the new offers, Bob, that we have, Bob, and why I should switch over, Bob, from this, Bob, 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 I'm literally electrocuting you to death. So stop that, right? It's something, it's not going to totally come naturally, but with practice, it becomes a lot easier, right? You might go, "Hi, I'm Rob. You are Bob? Nice to meet you, Bob." Right? That's 2 times right there. It's, did I hear it right? And am I saying it right? And here's the thing. I've done this enough times. I have the privilege of meeting somewhere between tens and thousands of people every single year. So I've had the opportunity to practice this. Nobody thinks it's weird if you go, "Tracy, nice to meet you, Tracy." There's a cadence and it's easy. Well, it's not easy. It's hard at first, but it's not creepy. And your brain always remembers the first thing that it heard and the last thing that it heard. So by repeating that person's name back to them, you're automatically giving your brain a first thing and last thing to focus on. And that in of itself gives you a higher likelihood of remembering that person's name. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, slow down and listen, repeat the person's name back to them. Again, just do those 2 things and you're gonna experience a lot less stress in your life. So I want to stay on the names thing for a second because there's another situation that we see come up, and it's a names thing, and this is that thing where, like, you run into somebody that it happens at the Jewel on Vale Street. I see it happen all the time. It's frozen foods or produce are the 2 areas it happens where you're in there, you're shopping, you're minding your own business, and someone comes up to you and they're like, "Hey, how are you? It's good to see you. How you been?" And like, they know your name and you can't remember their name. Just give me a yes or a heck yeah, or, "Oh my gosh, it happened today." Like, throw that in that chat. How many of you have done that thing where you ran into somebody, you know them, they remember your name and you can't remember that? Yeah, it's perfect. For sure. Totally. Yeah. Oh, Sharon, great to see you. I haven't seen your name in forever. So what happens is, and Vesserin, you were talking about, I got a bad memory. You don't have a bad memory. You got a great memory. What happens is stress is the #1 killer of your memory, right? So you're in that situation, someone it's like they ambushed you in front of the frozen peas and they're like, "Hey, it's good to see you. How you been?" You're like, "Hey, lady. Oh, what's happening, chief? Dude, how you been?" And in that moment, like, you're probably laughing. Hopefully you're laughing to yourself because it's a little bit funny. And then the reality is when you're in that moment, it's not funny. It's super stressful because you know that the message being communicated to that person is that they're unimportant or that you don't care. And here's the deal. You run into somebody that you haven't seen in a week, a month, 3 months, a year. They remember your name. You can't remember theirs. It doesn't mean they're unimportant. But the message gets sent regardless. And from a business standpoint, when it comes to the idea of generating new business or asking for referrals, it's a message you just can't afford to send. Teachers on here, like, yeah, you run into parents all the time, and you can't hide behind the mayonnaise at Mariano's because you can't remember Johnny's mom's name. It's just not a good way. It's not being a leader in the community. So when it comes to remembering information, I'm going to kind of transition. Hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, I know the frozen peas is money. You got to remember the name by the frozen peas, Jerry. I'm with you. So when it comes to remembering anything, there's three, I'm going to call them key strategies that most of our clients use. And I'm going to talk through these real quick. I'm going to talk about the benefits and the pitfalls of each. And then we're transitioning to the system we teach, talk a little bit about how that works specifically with remembering names. So the first methodology that people use for remembering anything, it's association. And I'm imagining that most of you on the conference, on the webinar here, you understand association, right? It's when association is you take an associate, a known with an unknown. And so a lot of times people try to use association for names. And that's like associate, I'm going to come back to a second. Association has its place. If you're trying to use your memory the way it's designed to be used, which is thinking visually, association is great because it gets you thinking in the language of your memory, which is pictures. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. It's really great for remembering things like numbers. It's really great for remembering specific items. It can be used for lists, sometimes effectively, sometimes not. Association is not good for remembering names. Most people try to use association for names. The example I get all the time is, let's say you meet a gentleman by the name of Denny. Well, what are you likely going to associate Denny with? Most people say the restaurant, right? So you're sitting there, you're looking at this guy like Denny, restaurant, Denny, restaurant, Denny, restaurant, Denny, restaurant. 3 weeks later, you run into this gentleman. What do you end up calling him? Yeah, you're like, Shoney Perkins, it's great to see you again. And it's just, there's a high margin of error with association. And I'll tell you, it's way more embarrassing to call someone the wrong name than it is to forget their name. Association, absolutely not the best way to remember names. It serves its purpose, again, trying to remember specific items and numbers, really awesome for association. And I've actually got a workshop that you all can dive into for free that'll help you with that. Yeah, mnemonic is another. Mnemonic comes up, and actually, mnemonic actually ties into the second strategy that I was going to talk about. Mnemonic, or we call it chaining and linking. And this is for anyone that's ever had a list of things they need to recall. This is when you put together that crazy story in your head. You know what I mean? You're like, hey, I've got a microphone, and I took that microphone and swung it around and bashed open a toilet. We got all kinds of examples from our world that we share, but like, you've tried to put together this crazy story and link one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And what happens is your working memory can only, your untrained memory can hold on to 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information for about 30 seconds. So what happens is when you start ringing up a big list of anywhere from 5 to 9, somewhere between 5 and 9, that thing just disappears because you got so much going on, that noodle above your neck, it gets jumbled. So chaining and linking mnemonics, it's got a purpose. Again, if you're trying to remember directions, if you're like driving directions, this is really great for. If you're trying to remember the chapters in a book, remember the chapters or the information from a book, chaining and linking can go really well because there's typically a specific methodical, commonsensical system or timeline that goes with remembering that information. The thing about chaining and linking is it's usually got some craziness, and the way we teach our clients is by actually acting out things. And so when you're meeting someone for the very first time, it's just not effective to be like acting out or getting crazy or doing funny things while you're trying to meet them. It's just like, you'll become memorable to them, but it's just not a really effective professional way to meet people. So again, chaining and linking or mnemonics has a purpose, but when it comes to recalling information, I said instant recall memory, it's just not going to serve you in that regard. The system that we teach and where we spend the majority of our time and where our clients really start to see significant improvements in their ability to recall information right away is through what we call the mental file folder system. It's been called the mental file folder system. It's been called the loci method. It's been called the memory palace. But when it comes to remembering anything using this methodology, I'm going to give you the keys to the castle real quick just because we got the time and I want to make sure everybody's walking out of here with some goods. So when it comes to remembering anything, there's three moving pieces. There's a file, there's an image, and there's glue. So if you're taking notes, just write the word fig on your piece of paper. Now, the thing to understand about your memory is that your memory, I said this earlier, I alluded to it, I said I was going to talk about it later. That's right now. The language of your memory is pictures. Your memory thinks in pictures. What I mean by that is if I asked any of you on the call right now or on the webinar to say, hey, I need you to describe, if we were like out at Harmony Park, not in the current climate, but if we were at Harmony Park and I said, hey, tell me about 50 things about your living room. The first thing you would need to do in your head is visualize that living room. And then you could probably see 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 items. You could describe them in detail. So the thing is you have to have an image or a picture for anything that you want to remember. Your memory thinks in pictures. This is why, incidentally, I'm going to sidebar for a second. Somebody made the comment in the chat earlier, I want to be better remembering faces. I'm going to play off of that, and I forgive me if this is snarky or flippant, but the reality is people often, how many of you, and throw this in the chat, please. How many of you have ever been in this situation or said to yourself, man, I'm great with faces, but I suck at names. I'm great at faces, but I stink at, I know I've seen that person somewhere before, but man, what is their name? How many I see? Yes, 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 yes. Yeppery. I mean, like, holy cow, it blew up. Yeah, here's why, okay? I just said the language of your memory is pictures, okay? Here's why. A face is a picture, right? No one, listen, I can tell you the amount of times that someone has ever walked up to me and said, hey, you're Rob, but I totally forgot what your face looks like. Nobody's ever had that conversation. People, you remember faces, but the name isn't an image. And so that's why people struggle with names. So I'm going to push back a little bit on the remembering faces in that regard. I think I know what you're talking about, but understand you're always going to, I always remember a face. Yeah, that's everybody because faces are pictures. Back on track. So the language of your memory is pictures. File, image, glue. When it comes to remembering anything, there's a file, which is a place for you to store information. There's I, which stands for image, which is a visual representation or a picture for the piece of information that you want to remember. And then G stands for glue. Glue is how you stick that picture into the file. Now, the cool thing about glue is it's nothing more than action and emotion. Yes, Meg, you nailed it. Turn the name into a picture. That's exactly right. I'm going to explain this a little bit more in a second. Glue is nothing more than action and emotion. And so what I mean by that is, okay, here's an example, and you've been using it your entire life. This was really, you already know how glue works. This is super, super cool. You already know a third of the equation. The way I explain this to people is, what I want you to do is I want you to think of something that happened to you as a child that you can still remember clear as day, like it happened to you yesterday. Like, what's something you experienced that, and throw it in the chat. Like, let's get Sherry Carey here. What's something that happened to you as a kid that you can still remember today as an adult? Like, you can remember clear as day, like it happened yesterday. Like, I'll give you an example. In my world, like, I got peppered in the face by wasps. Like, you know, the dryer vent comes out of your house. I was a little kid peeking up in there. I just got peppered in the face. There's a lot of action and emotion in getting peppered in the face by a bunch of wasps. Yeah. Playing with tadpoles in the creek. Yeah. The day JFK died. Yeah. Where were you when where were you when, who shot JR? Where were you when JFK died? Like, oh yeah, bringing my toenails to show and tell. Nancy, you did that in public. That's amazing. You guys, all these examples are perfect. How I sharpened my pen. 9/11, Bill. Thank you. That's my favorite example of understanding action and emotion. You all know where you were on September 11, 2001 at 8:36 in the morning. You have no idea where you were August 4th, 2008, unless it's your birthday. Yeah, like, I got lost on a cruise ship. Fair amount of action and emotion getting lost on a cruise ship. Meg, I would love to hear the story that went into that one, just not tonight. So you all understand action and emotion is how you get the image to stick to the file. So with this mental file folder system, with FIG, you can use this in order to remember any piece of information. So as it relates to remembering names, what I'm going to tell you is, I got to give you the keys. I got to teach you how to remember this, by the way. So because your memory thinks in pictures, on your own, if you got family members watching you, you totally have to do this. I want you all to like hold your hand out in front of you like this. And I want you to picture a fig in your hand, right? So hopefully you all know what a fig is. If you don't know what a fig is, just use a fig Newton, like the cookie. It does the same thing. So picture that fig and just say fig to yourself. Repeat the word fig, fig, fig. See that purple fig, squish it up in your hand, feel it really grainy and sticky. Take a whiff of it. How does it smell? Hopefully you should be saying figgy. It always smells figgy. You can taste it. Like it's really sweet, feel like grainy, and then flick it off, right? Every fig has a wasp in it. I like your thinking, Lynn, and then I don't. Anyway, fig, because your memory thinks in pictures, I'm teaching you how to memorize a picture for fig, which is the 3 moving parts that go into remembering anything. I'm hoping I'm gonna recap this. When it comes to remembering anything, there's got to be a file, a place for you to store the information you want to remember. There's got to be an image, or a picture for the piece of information, a visual representation of that information you want to remember. And then you guys use glue to stick that image into the file. So using fig to remember people's names, here's the way it works. The person you meet, they are the file. So specifically, this is a perfect example. You all watching, if you're all watching this right now, if you were to meet me walking up to me, I am the file. You always want to focus on the top half of people. I feel like that's probably a whole different presentation, but common sense says you hopefully understand why. Nobody talks to people's bottom half. But anyway, you want to focus on the top half of that person, specifically their face, and you want to look for a unique feature on that person's face. For me, it's the schnoz. I'm not going to lie to you. Proportionally speaking, that's a thing of beauty right there, right? So everyone has a unique feature, right? My nose is proportionally a little bit bigger. If we were to hang out, for those of you that stick around to the end, when I get tired, my left eye closes a little bit, not in like a drunken, creepy way, but you'll see my left eye close a little bit. So everyone, that person you meet, they are the file, right? Specifically, their face is the file. You take their name and you turn it into a picture. Now, I said association can be helpful. This is a situation where association can be helpful, because if you can associate their name with a picture, then you're going to know that's a picture. So for instance, my name is Rob. The picture that I have for a Rob is a robber mask. So I don't know what a Rob is, but I know what a robber's mask is. So my file is me. The image is a robber mask. And then the glue I use a lot of action and emotion. So I take and stick that robber mask to my nose, which is that standout feature. If you picture me with a robber mask on top of a big schnoz with a tired, lazy eye, you're going to remember that I'm Rob, and you know that I'm stealing your ability to forget things because I teach memory training. This makes sense? Another example of this is one of my work colleagues, his name is Penn, Penn. So Penn, it just so happens, he's not watching this, and so I'm not going to get in trouble. He'd be okay with this. Penn has, he's got a lot of forehead. It's not like a receding hairline. He just has a big forehead. It's like a 4.5, almost a 5 head. And so I've joked with him, I'm like, Penn, like when it comes to memory training, you've got the best face possible for your name. Because when I met him, I just pictured like a pen, and I took it and I stabbed it into his forehead, into his big forehead. And that's a very visceral piece of action emotion. And that's how you remember Penn, because you jab that big pen or pen into his forehead. Hopefully, is this making sense? Hopefully I can't talk and interrupt. Just throw this in the chat. Yes, no, does this make sense? So I'm going to go with yes. I'm going to go with no. I can give you some more examples if you'd like, or if somebody's got an example for a name that they'd like me to demonstrate, as long as they're not on the call, I'm happy to try and do that. Now, sometimes here's another example is there's a lot. We live in second Warsaw here outside of Chicago, and I'm just going to call a spade. And there's a fair amount of us who have seems like 3 things to remember instead of 1. Yes, and then it's a system. Dave, you brought up a great point. It seems like there's 3 things to remember instead of 1. yes and no. There's one process to follow. I mean, every person I know has a face, so they've got a file. That's awesome. Everybody's face has a picture. That's number two. You just got to turn that into a picture, or turn their name. Everyone has a name. Turn that name into a picture, and then just action, emotion. That'll come to you. If you're struggling with that, just think like a 13-year-old boy. Get really inappropriate. It's awesome. Christy, Krista, Kirsten, keeping them straight. Yeah, that's a tough one. You got to have different pictures for each of their names, and each of those pictures need to have different actions. I'm going to come back to that in a second. So my last name is Zbierski. I know there's a lot of people who meet, America's the cultural melting pot. We've got a lot of people with what shall we say, challenging last names. Sometimes challenging first names, sometimes challenging last names. What you can do is you can break larger names up into smaller chunks that you can turn into a picture. So for instance, I don't know what a Zbierski is, but I actually learned this from my wife after we got married. She was trying to explain to people how to say our last name. And so I'll tell this to people. I say, you got to picture a naked letter Z, and it's skiing. It's on a set of skis, and it's really cold. It's naked. Zbierski. And that's how you remember Zbierski being my last name. And it's funny, I've taught this to, as I said, I have the privilege of traveling all over and speaking for big organizations. I've literally had CEOs of massive organizations on stage trying to they're getting ready to introduce me, and they'll be like, I want to introduce Rob, and they'll literally be kind of bent over and doing this thing, acting out what I just showed them, Zbierski, and I'll totally make fun. I'm like, nailed it, man. So that's another methodology. That's a little more of the chaining and linking that we talked about. I said positives and negatives, ways you can use them. That's more of a chaining and linking strategy right there, where you take those three pictures, put them together, and that's Zbierski. Meg, great call. It does help to write that name down, and then it's also sometimes just not possible to do that. So again, FIG, file image glue. You can you use this in this methodology for remembering names. Again, the person is the file, like specifically their face. Their name turned into a picture becomes the image, and then you use a lot of really great action and emotion in order to stick that picture to their face. We get this coming in. Is it just as effective to speak briefly to them, or associate they something and say in place of the visual pic? Tina, it's a great question. The question is it just as effective to speak briefly to them or associate something they say in place of the visual pic? I sometimes do both depending on the circumstance. So yes and no. I'm going to go back to the statement I made earlier, where one of the pitfalls of association is it has a really high margin of error. So if you're trying to associate a conversation topic, the reality is there's a likelihood that you're not going to be able to pin it to that exact person. And that's, that's like talking about a lovely experience you had with your ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend with your current boyfriend or girlfriend. It just doesn't go well. So you can stack, in regards to, you can stack these strategies together. I would definitely encourage you, as often as you can, try to lean towards using the visualization exercise, because that is the natural language of your memory. It thinks in pictures, and the clearer the picture and the more glue you use, the higher the likelihood of it sticking into onto the file and subsequently in your memory. So if there's more questions, let's keep them coming. Tracy, if you're seeing the chat, I'm seeing some stuff. If you got anything else that's come in privately, same image for the same name. Bill, this is a great question. I've read about this technique. They suggest using, you probably read about it from me. No, I'm just kidding. They suggest using the same image for the same name. Is this the most effective? Every single time is the short version. Every time I meet a Rob, I know that my name is Rob, but anytime I meet a Rob, I put a robber mask on that person's face. Anytime I meet a John, that person is getting crushed by a toilet, because toilet is my picture for John in my head. So that's that's a perfect example of having a really crazy action emotion. I meet a guy by the name of John. I find something unique feature about his face, and then my picture for John is a toilet. So I just picture a toilet falling down, crushing that dude in wherever it is. Now I know that guy's name is John. Because here's the deal. An hour later, if I'm at a social, like, again, I'm going to go back to like when we're all out out and about again. If I'm at a bar, I'm at a party, and I see somebody standing in the room, and out of nowhere, this toilet came down and just crushed them and shattered into 1,000 pieces, you know, you're gonna be like, wow, that's John. You're going to remember that because it's really weird. So hopefully that makes sense.
Do you see the question we just got? What are strategies for word retrieval difficulties with kids?
Yeah, that's a great one, Cynthia. I'm going to answer this one as effectively as I can. I'm going to channel my wife on this one. She has used this. My wife is a speech pathologist. And so she's often helping kids mitigate situations where, yeah, like looking for the word, can't find the word. And so she has taught them little triggers. So she'll use association or FIG. She'll use what we call the unicorn list, which I'm going to tell you how to access that at the end here, to help them associate that word to a known list that they can just, when they hear that trigger, or when they hear that word, it triggers that memory for them to go, oh yeah, it's that word. I don't know if hopefully that's answering the question for you, but anything you can do to associate that word or tie it via a trigger, like a visual mental trigger, that'll absolutely help with word retrieval with kids. Jacqueline, you and I have the same affliction where I would be afraid that I would start laughing. Yes, that has been known to happen. And man, sometimes you never do it for them. Okay, I'm going to share with you right now. These strategies, these ideas these hints or tips, whatever you want to call them, that I'm giving you. Please don't ever share with the person you're meeting the picture you have for them. It's never for them. It's for you, right? It's so that when they leave, you can call them by name. The brain always remembers the first thing that it heard and the last thing that it heard. So if the last thing that person's brain hears is you using their name, you just became more memorable to them. So, I met a woman, and her name was Amber Crystal. So she was, hi, I'm Amber. I'm like, hi, Amber, nice to meet you. What's your last name? She goes, Amber Crystal. I said, thank you. She goes, for what? I said, you'll find out in a couple hours. I was teaching one of our bigger, longer 8-hour memory trainings. We got to the point, she's like, oh, got it now. Her name literally was a picture, Amber Crystal. Sue, you asked a great question. What about ethnic names that don't translate into English? Like Zbierski, you take and break those names, those bigger names up into smaller chunks that you can turn into pictures, and then chain and link those together to create a story or a picture. Like the naked Z, skiing and being cold, Zbierski, that's how that works. Karen, what about meeting 6 people at the same time? I'm going to keep it PG-13, so I know I can say this. This is my personal hell. I'll often walk into a room and they'll be like, all right, this is Tom and John and Tina and Randy and Tawny and Sarah, and I'm what's her name memory guy. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. We said the number one tip for remembering people's names is slow down and listen. You have my permission to slow down that conversation, slow down that interaction, focus on meeting one person at a time. If you can meet one person, give them file, image, glue to remember their name, then move on to the next, 100% okay. It's actually the way your memory works. It can take information like that, but it requires a lot of practice. It's not going to happen overnight. Memory training is a skill. It's no different than swinging a golf club or riding a bike. It's a skill that needs to be practiced and cultivated. And the more you use it, the better you get at it. Rachel, any websites, reference materials, or mental game recommendations to share with you to increase your memory? Rachel, are you a shill in the audience? It's like you knew where I was going with this. Yes, absolutely. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to share, we're starting to wrap. It's 7:40. Is anyone else? This has been flying by. I hope this has been helpful. Throw me a yes, no, maybe so in the chat. Has this been fun? Has this been helpful? Is this something hopefully you can walk out of here and use tonight or soon? Man, wouldn't it be great to be able to use this in social settings less than 13 feet away from each? Yes, I'm getting some of yes. Awesome. This is fantastic. Thank you. Tell me how your wife nailed that talk. Linda, yeah, what we did was we took my wife, Linda, do you sell Norwex? Is that what's going on here? No, so what we did was we took her presentation and we broke it down into 10 key points. We then took those key points and turned them into pictures, and then using another one of our FIG strategies called body files, we taught our way to memorize that list of key points using FIG. So what she was able to do is to go through that list in her head, and she went on a mental walk of where the files and pictures were in her mind, so she was able to deliver the presentation. It's hard to explain in 45 seconds. We've actually got we've got an entire 8-hour memory training curriculum that we often teach. I'm gonna, if it's all right, it seems to me, Tracy, like there's people that would love to like continue their learning. So I'm gonna throw a couple of resources up on the screen for you. I'm gonna switch to all panelists here. I think I can do this. Hi.
Absolutely. I want to say too that any resources or anything that you want to share with our customers, I can throw in an email after the program. So
yeah. Okay, perfect. So this is my contact information, and I'm going to go down here real quick, and I'm going to hit play. While you're looking at this, write this down. For those, okay, number one, there's a couple books out there. Moonwalking with Einstein. For who's ever taking notes, Moonwalking with Einstein by Joshua Foer, F-O-E-H-R, is an awesome book about understanding. It's not a science book. It's not a how-to book. It's a, hey, this is how I learned memory training and how I applied it. Moonwalking with Einstein is great. Ron White is a guy, he's a national memory champion. His business competes with my business. He actually used to work for my company years ago. He's got a bunch of resources that are out there. But here's the deal. We've got a program called Planet Freedom. And what we've done is it's our entire 8-hour memory training lives there. If you go to this website, if you go to this bit.ly link, bit.ly/MT freedom, I think is what it says. I can't really see it because it's cut off here. But if you go to this link, and I think if you want to put it in the chat, plug this in, I'm going to give you a free 1-hour memory training workshop. And ultimately, at the end of that, it's the association part of our workshop, where you're going to learn to remember a list of over 20 items forward, back, in, and out of order. So for those of you that are looking at the screen and can write it down, or if it's in the chat, I can't see the chat right now because I'm sharing my screen. That's an awesome resource. And I'll tell you, one thing I didn't talk about, for those of you that do this, for those of you on this that have kids, please share this workshop with your kids. It's super simple. Kids pick this stuff up like that, and they use it to increase their test scores while reducing their study time. One of my favorite recent examples is, my kids, we got 10-year-old twins, and I'm an efficiency expert. I didn't mention that. I make kids 2 at a time. You're allowed to laugh at that. It's okay. But anyway, my kid's second grade teacher asked me, she found out what I did. She asked me to come in, and I taught the kids in 20 minutes or half an hour. I taught the kids half of the workshop that you can get for free here. And this is hyperactive second graders. In 30 minutes, we taught them how to remember a list of 10 things forward, back, in, and out of order. My son, I do it with him all the time. He still does it all the time. He uses this to teach all of his Cub Scout buddies all the Scout Oath and Scout Law. And what's funny is I ran into the kid's teacher at a bar. But anyway, she was telling me how she was able to, she's still, 2 years later, she's still using all this stuff with her classes since then. She's incorporated this because the kids pick it up so easy. But there's different ways that kids can implement these skills to improve their learning. And then for those of you interested, please connect with me. I'm local. I also, in addition to everything I do, I also am the founder of Beers for Gears, which is a bicycle repair and tune-up. I do bicycle repairs and tune-ups here in town, so you can check that out. But connect with me on Facebook and LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. You can see pictures of all my ballroom carpets that I speak on. Today it's my home office because I'm not on a lot of ballrooms. But I don't know how to. Oh, there we go. I can't actually see the chat at this point, Tracy, because I want to leave my contact information up for everyone. But if there's any other questions that came in, let them rip. I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions. But short version is, I love the library. Thank you again thank you for letting me be a repeat offender with you all and share some of what we do.
Oh, we're very happy to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. And any information or any links or resources that, including your contact information, I can make sure goes in the email that we send out, shortly after each program. It has a survey in there. We'd love for you guys to take it. And I'm guessing we will see Robb Zbierski back at AHML when we are all back to normal. It's going to be so wonderful. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. If you have any questions or anything, when you get that email, feel free to put them in the survey and let us know what you're thinking. And other than that, please go to ahml.info to check out all our other virtual programs. We have all kinds of fun stuff. I think tomorrow we have astrology, but we have all sorts of stuff coming up. Until we're back to normal, I guess this will be what normal is. So thanks to Mr. Zbierski. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming. If you have any last minute questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. It looks good. Thanks, Rob. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for helping us out. You guys have
Thanks,
a good
everyone.
night. Take care.
Have a good night, folks.
Bye.
Wow.